Hi, this is Kez. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing another indie makeup brand for yourselves. And again, this is another one of my favourites. Last time I did a review on cosmic brushes, which you can still find up on the channel. And this time I'm going to be reviewing a brand that started off its life as Alien Cosmetics and then changed over to Unearthly Cosmetics. So some of my packages have got the Alien Cosmetics on and some have the Unearthly. That just depends how long ago I bought the actual palette. This brand is mainly an American brand. Obviously you can get them sent over to the UK, and that's where I've got most of mine. In no particular order, I'm just going to show you the palettes and the quality, and then I'm going to be doing a little eye look as well, just to show you what they're like on the actual eyes. So the first one that I have here is this one with the Unearthly package on, and this one is called Not Normal. The covers are something that stand out to me. They're always really attractive, so whoever does the artwork for them is amazing. This is the colour scheme on this one. It's kind of very grungy, which I really like. They always come with a good mix of shimmers and mattes. The shimmers sometimes are duochrome, but sometimes they're just pure shimmers. Either way, they're always really nice. And I like the fact that they have slightly different shades to what some of the other palettes have. For example, not many palettes have ones like this, which is Emotions, which is kind of a metallic lilac. And also this grunge one here is sort of more of a taupey brown, almost pulling on plum, whereas you usually get another palette sort of more browny shades. So I do like that they are a bit different. You can see just from that the pigment is brilliant in it. That's Topaz, which is the yellowy shade, and I'm just going to show you Gemini as well. This one is a bit of a flicky shade, so it's primarily yellow, but also pulls a little bit of green and white in there as well, depending on what light it's in. And I really love the fact that they've got sage in here as well, which is a sage green. So that's one of the earlier ones that I got. Then we have this one here, which is Smells Like Holiday Spirit. This is one of their earlier palettes, and it does have the Alien Cosmetics label on, and lovely packaging. This was one that they've obviously released around the Christmas period, but again the shades are slightly more unique, so you don't just have your standard Christmas greens and reds, you've also got others. So for example, you've got Jolly here, which is a really pretty shade. I really like Fireplace, which is the orange one. Again, the mattes are really pigmented. I did find that on the earlier shades, although some of them, like the green one, is very pretty, and this does pull more of a lemony green, some of the shades, like the Jolly one, aren't quite as pigmented as the others. I think that's just because they were perfecting the formula. It doesn't mean that they don't work. You just have to work with them a little bit more by sort of building them up, whereas the later shimmers, you just swatch it and it's straight out of the pan, is great. But the mattes seem to remain steady across all the formula. So the next one I've got here is Hauntingly Glamorous. This is another one that's still under the label of Alien Cosmetics when I got it. I do believe that a lot of these palettes got repackaged with their new names, but because I bought them a long time ago, that's why they're still there. This one, although you can't tell, is actually quite loved. There's quite a bit of dips in some of the shades. Colour scheme wise, this is probably one of my favourite colour stories. I really like the difference and the sort of context in there. They do go really well together, but they're not shades that I would necessarily put together. You can see as well on these ones that they did start putting the imprints into the shades, which I think is lovely. Although I do find when people put imprints in the shades, it puts me off wanting to use them because they look so pretty, which is not their fault. So Lily is sort of a greeny white. It does pull more white, but there is a slight shimmer of green in there, which is really good. What I love is if you look at the Morticia shade here, the red's really pigmented, and it's hard to find a red that actually keeps the shade. Sometimes on any palettes you do get a little bit of staining in the brighter shades. Sometimes you get a bit of shade, sometimes you get a bit of staining on the brighter shades, but that's normal across all makeup palettes because it's strong pigment. I wouldn't not note that as a fault, but I'm just letting you know of that. But that seems to be more in the earlier ones than the later ones. But again, if you use a really good primer on your eyes, it comes off with the primer anyway, so it's not really an issue. I like the fact that they've got darker ones in here, but they haven't gone straight for black. So you've got the Movie Macabre here, which weirdly enough is like a charcoaly almost, it has got a little bit blue in there, but you can't really see it. And then you've got straight into navy here with the Seance Weather, and that sort of is definitely more navier than it is black. It's a nice palette to sort of do more unusual looks. If you're like me, although I look fairly standard most of the time, especially for work, I do like to pull out some gothy looks, and I do like grungy themes as well. So this one is under the new label, which was Unearthly Cosmetics, and this one is Leather and Lace. Again, it's a very grungy. There is a theme along most of these palettes that they are kind of like fantasy grunge, but that's why I like them. So I'm going to go in and show you the black, because it's always hard to find a good matte black, and this one is. And it's nice to see things like Vintage, which is kind of like this matcha green. Not so many shimmers in this, only 3, but the Point de Spirit one is quite pretty. That's sort of like an orangey gold, but they all do sort of, if you look at the rose, you could do a look with all of the rose, so they're almost like designed in sections to be used. So a lot of thought, I think, has gone into the placement on these palettes, and I do find that that is across the board with them. So we're going back to Alien Cosmetics now, and we have this one which is called Capricorn. Again, the artwork's always stunning. This one is a really bright palette, which I quite like. Again, you've got the familiar imprints popping up in these palettes. This Miku one is really, really good. The thing that's interesting about this palette is it's a slightly different shade layout to the others. While the others had quite harsh shimmers in them, had quite hardcore shimmers in them, this does have a little bit of shimmer in it, but it's more subtle. So you can see it. It's almost like slight flecks of glitter in the shades, but not full on shimmer. But I think that works really well with the theme. And even the sort of ones like Rise, which is a grey, is still very pigmented. And that palette's quite good if you're more into brights. So I've got Don't Be Jelly here, which is by Unearthly Cosmetics. This one was one of the ones where they went for all shimmer, which I was really happy with. Now, I do know there's been a couple of these because some of them were redone, slightly different formula. This one, I think, is the older one. You can feel the different formulas in them, like that one, which is a duochrome, that's really soft. This top one, which is a glitter, which is the purple, that's kind of almost scratchy when you touch it. But then you've got that one which is just like a normal one. So I think they did play with formulas a little, and that might be why they reformulated it. So they all start with DBJ, which is Don't Be Jelly, the name of the palette, and you've basically got 1 to 9. But it's a beautiful colour scheme. The ones that are kind of flaky, duochromes, those ones in particular are my favourite, and they do feel really lovely on the skin. That one you can see is like a pink, like a lilac-y and a green in with it, whereas this one's a blue and green. So they are slightly different, but they're just really pretty shades. They're probably my favourite 2 out of the palette. So we've got another one that's Unearthly Cosmetics. I'm not sure whether this one was called Bunnies. I will have to look it up. But anyway, the colour scheme is really nice. This one, again, you're sort of looking more of a pastel-y, but I like the fact this has got quite a lot of equal shimmers in it. So you've got 6 shimmers and 6 non-shimmers, and they all sort of go in pairs. So if you look, you've got a shimmer and a matte for each one, which is really good for doing look. Again, in this palette, they've got, this is one of the newer formulas, I think, and they're very, very shimmery, and they feel nice as well. I don't have any problems with the feel of these ones. And again, the mattes are just mattes, they just really stand out. There isn't one that I've swatched where I found that the mattes aren't pigmented in these palettes, and that's one of the things I like, because mattes can sometimes be a bit chalky, they get a lot of fallout. You don't really get that with these. So still under Unearthly brand, we've got Witching Hour. This is one of the ones that I've really taken to. It's got that beautiful colour scheme again, which I really like. So Curse, that's got that metallic sort of greeny shade in, but this is sort of pure lime. There is a little bit of a yellow pull to it, but I really like it. The orange again sticks out really brightly on here, and I'm going to show you the purple as well because that's really lovely. Unearthly Cosmetics Law. This is one of the other ones. This is more of a darker theme. It's kind of mythology based. You've got Serpent, Minotaur and Sphinx on the top row. Fawn, Basilisk and Centaur in the middle. And then we've got Griffin, Cerberus and Medusa on the bottom. The basilisk straight away grabs my attention because it's a really sort of metallic green, but it's kind of more on the darker side of green. And then the fawn is very unusual, like a lighter orange, which you don't really see in many palettes. And I really like the pink one in there as well. I'm not really a massively pinky girl, but if I do want pink, it's nice to have. I do think the Minotaur is really nice as well. That's kind of like almost an aubergine shade. And then I've got here 1964 in the rebranded Unearthly Cosmetics. I love the cover art on that. I've actually kept the sleeve on this one. And this one is sort of based around horror and the monster. Look how beautiful they are. This again has got those shades that I told you about that are almost like a sugar crush. So they're really soft and pigmented, and they've got a lot of flashes in. That one goes between like a gold and a pink. Lily is more pink with a little bit of red in, and 1964 is actually a glitter, which is the first palette I've seen that's actually got a glitter in. The formula on that isn't great, I've got to be honest. I don't know whether it's just because it's an older palette or whether it was just a bad formula. That's not knocking the brand at all, it's just that one single shadow. Everything else in the palette is lovely. It could just mean that it needs a top layer taking off it and it working a little bit. Sometimes that helps. Herman, lovely shade of green there. And 1913, beautiful shade there. So totally breaking in consistency here because it's a completely different day. I was looking for my Poison Apple palette from Unearthly Cosmetics, which is still under the old name of Alien Cosmetics. It was one of my favourites and I just couldn't find it, but I have managed to now. So that's the packaging, and I really love the packaging on it. It's just very unique and different, and it says Serendipity on it, who I guess is who did the artwork for it. It's an older palette, so I don't really know a lot about it, but the colour story is beautiful, very, very pretty. You can see there's a mix of mattes and shimmers in there, and we've got mostly shimmers in this one. There's 5 shimmers and 4 of the mattes, which to be honest I prefer because I'm very much a shimmer girl, and you can see as I move it that the shimmers are really pretty. I'm going to just pick up a couple of shades to show you. One that really caught my eye was the Granny Smith, and that is a metallic green, but you can see it pulls quite a bit of yellow from it. And then the Poison one is really, really pretty. It pulls purple in the pan, but you can see it's got an orange to it as well, and there is also a slight blue shimmer which doesn't always get picked up by the camera. And I just wanted to highlight as well that the mattes are equally as beautiful and very pigmented. The only thing I would have said about this, and it's not a fault by any means, but I would have liked a really strong matte red, but I also know that it's very hard to do a matte red, and so it's not, as I say, a criticism, it's just generally to show that that is something that personally I would have liked to have seen included. So that is the full collection that I have of the Unearthly Alien Cosmetics palettes. They are an amazing indie brand, and if you can get hold of them, it's definitely worth giving them a go. The formula has just got better and better as it's gone along. I'm going to start by taking the blue in the Capricorn palette and just adding that to the corners. And I'm using quite a fluffy brush for this. Because the shade's quite pigmented, so I want to blend it out. I always make sure I place it a little bit higher because I have hooded eyes, and when I close my eyes it naturally goes back into the crease. I'm going to look in one of the other palettes now, because if I remember rightly, the Hauntingly Glamorous, it's got a really nice shade of purple in it, and I'm going to take a slightly harsher brush this time for this purple, just because it's a lighter shade so it picks up the pigment better. I'm blending the two in together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the Blood Curdling shade on top of the other blue as well, but leave a little bit of the purple on there just to brighten up the corner a little bit. While the shade's really pretty on its own, I wanted it to sort of blend seamlessly. I'm just going to take a clean brush now and just make sure that I smooth it all out at the top so that blends in really well. And now I like to put a little bit of shimmer on there as well, so I think the Don't Be Jelly palette's going to be the best for that. I'm going to go for this blue, which is the one that pulls a bit of pink as well. And that is the result. So if I take the tape off now, you can see how pretty that is. It does actually look better in brighter light. So if I put the lights on it, you can see. And there we go, the finished look. I will be reviewing another brand soon. I think the next one up is going to be Beauty Moon Cosmetics, which is a UK brand. So please join me for the next video and like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Bye.